but being there, hearing him be born, and hearing his first cries was the most amazing thing absolutely in the world. Hi, my name is Alyssa Cohen. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist here in Southern California.
I'm Elan Goldman. I teach 6th grade in elementary school. I've been doing that for 27 years now.
We have been married for 13 and a half years now.
All my whole life I've worked with kids. I've always loved kids, so I always knew I wanted to start a family. So we tried for many years and wasn't working out.
We both wanted children for a very long time, and unfortunately after trying the natural way, which we weren't successful, going through IUI process and other fertility struggles with uterine fibroid and having surgery. I have endometriosis and PCOS and other gynecological issues. It was determined I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant at all and maintain a pregnancy.
When Alyssa suggested the surrogacy process, it really seemed like we finally had a way forward.
After meeting with our doctors and discussing a path forward, surrogacy was that journey for us. Choosing the right agency felt daunting at first. We did the typical online search of what is going to be the best agency for us. Being that it was going to be our first time, we wanted somebody to come and hold our hand and walk us through because we had no idea what we were doing. And this was scary. This was unknown. There was a lot of anxiety in it, and we wanted to be successful. GSHC was the first agency that we interviewed with. We did look at a couple of other agencies, and to be honest, meeting with our coordinator really gave us a sense of reassurance in answering our questions, spending the time with us, helping us feel like this was going to be a process that we could do, and that the agency GSHC was going to be there for us throughout the entire process. We really felt like with the size of GSHC, it was the right sized company or organization for us. It wasn't too big, it wasn't too small. It had all of the right components for us, but it really came down to the coordinator giving us that right feeling and answering our questions and spending the time with us and just making us feel comfortable. Getting that profile, not just the pictures, but what we're writing and writing that letter to our future surrogate was a little anxiety provoking, I would say, because there was a lot that we don't know what's out there. We don't know what it's going to look like. And so there's just so much trust that goes into it. And that was the beginning of the process of trust. To find a match, it took about 6 months, which was at the height of the pandemic. We could say we were lucky to some degree. It could have been longer. First profile we were shown was our surrogate. We really, really lucked out because this was the first profile we were shown. And I remember that weekend, I remember getting that email and seeing it and was like, there's a match, and being so excited and seeing the profile and going through it from reading all of her background and her medical history that we were shown, and then seeing her picture and her picture with her family. And there was something in it that just connected with us, and her straightforwardness, which I know we appreciate, and her honesty in it. We spent a lot of time really reflecting on the profile and what we were looking for and what our values were in the other person. She did happen to live in Florida, across the country from us. However, she checked all the other boxes, and there was something about her that just fit. Just the feeling we got when meeting with her online, and her desire was there. You could feel her genuine desire to do this and to be a surrogate. And it was a choice that we made to say yes, because she was the right person for us. We could have said no and waited for somebody who was closer, which would have been ideal. She was also a first-time surrogate, which I think it wouldn't have mattered either way, but I think there was something special about that because we were first-time IPs, intended parents. I remember reaching back out to our coordinator and saying like, I'm anxious about this.
Our coordinator was really good about really trying to reassure us. He was like, this is a really good match. And he really pushed for us to say yes.
And so for us, it was a chance to go on this journey together. And this is something I would like to say for intended parents, that this is going to be a huge part of learning to trust yourself and trust your instincts in this entire journey, because this entire process is about trust. Mm-hmm. You have to give over everything to another person and to a process that you don't have control over. It's hard enough to not be pregnant and to not carry your own child. And it's somebody else who, in our case, was 3,000 miles away. And that was really difficult. So for us to be able to just trust in it and say, okay, she's going to be the one. While it was nerve-wracking, it felt right. It really did feel right. After she had gone through medical, she had already gone through the psychiatric evaluation, she had been passed, and we went through legal. There was some confusion about that because we live in California and she lived in Florida, and we eventually realized we had to get an attorney in Florida versus getting one in California. Some people choose to get both. We consulted with quite a few attorneys, and it found out it was probably best to just stick with one in her home state because of that state's laws, that it was going to be a post-birth order, and that's something for intended parents to check out, that it's going to be dependent on where your child is going to be born, not where you live necessarily. We knew going in what our stipulations were, but we also knew putting into the contract we didn't want to be too restrictive. This was somebody who was an individual person with their own autonomy and their own body and had their own family. We had a few things that we were very specific on, which related to following their doctor's recommendations.
I wanted to add about the contract process and this is a big subject of discussion on the online groups for intended parents, is about what to put in the contract and what not to put in the contract. And our lawyer said, well, you can put whatever you want in the contract. The hard part is enforcing it. And so really it's a matter of making sure, you really have to put a lot of trust in this person who's going to be taking care of your precious little baby for 9 months inside of them. You really want to make sure you trust this person and kind of put that first.
It was odd not talking to our surrogate during that process. It's kind of like we had all of this communication and then that kind of stopped during the process of legal. But once legal was signed, we were able to recommunicate. Our doctor decided that she didn't need to do a mock cycle, so we were able to just start medications. But she did some blood work and then start medications right away, getting her prepared and then flying her out to California to prepare for the transfer. We were very lucky, very, very blessed. We had 6 embryos that were highly graded. I'm lucky that after the first transfer, it was a sticky baby, sticky embryo, and she was pregnant. And from there, it was just a whole lot of appointments and wait and see. The hardest part of the journey, I would say, though, for the 9 months was being 3,000 miles away. We weren't able to fly out for any of the appointments, and she didn't come back over here for the appointments. So we did a lot of FaceTime. Her and I would text a lot. The idea was to text at least once a week to check in. And some weeks that happened and some weeks that didn't. Our expectations for what a relationship would look like, I think we didn't have any expectations because we had no idea what to expect. I think her and us were both kind of on the same page of whatever the other one wanted. I mentioned earlier one of the hardest things was just not being able to be pregnant and not being able to know what it feels like. According to our surrogate, everything went great. He was an easy pregnancy, especially compared to her own 2 children, which was amazing. I mean, I'm grateful for that. He was actually a scheduled C-section at 39 weeks, and that was the doctor's choice because the surrogate had had a previous C-section with her last child. Just that the doctor felt it was the best for a healthiest birth. A piece of advice I would give to any intended parent is make friends with your nurse manager at the hospital of the pediatric unit or whatnot. They will be your best friends. And I made good friends with her, and she advocated for us. She had worked with surrogates before, and she knew what was going on, and she really advocated with the doctors and the other people in the surgery area and helped bring us in, which was amazing. But being there, hearing him be born and hearing his first cries was the most amazing thing absolutely in the world. I know that I wasn't able to have him, but I wouldn't give it up for the world. After our son was born and having him, they did all of the measurements, everything they needed to do with him to check him out, his APGAR, everything, and we were so blessed. He was healthy, everything was good. We brought him to the room that him and my mom were in, and the nurse actually filmed his reaction, and I have never in my life seen him more happy. And it was so precious, and so amazing, seeing him hold him for the first time and seeing us as a family.
Yeah, that was my biggest regret in the whole process, that I wasn't able to be in the room for the birth. But as soon as he was born and he was ready, They brought him in, and that's our favorite picture now of us.
The three of us.
Us together holding him, me holding him for the first time, just us together.
But I just remember just that whole morning, he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect, because he was. The rest of the day was a blur. I think, after about an hour or 2 hours, we did the first feeding. We did skin to skin. We had our own little room for a while until they moved him into the nursery, and he stayed at the hospital for about 36 hours, which was the minimum. We actually had to get him checked by a pediatrician. We had another bilirubin check in Florida, and we stayed for a total of 5 days with him. So he's 5 days old. Yeah, was up, and then he was good to go.
For our friends and family, they've all been really accepting and really, we've been open about it, and they've all been really great about it, and we haven't really felt any stigma or judgment telling anybody close to us about it. They were very accepting and welcoming to Ellie, and very supportive of the whole process.
We've been open about how he was born. There's some great books out there, some great resources for families of surrogacy that are good for parents, not just of intended parents, but also for surrogate parents that she's shared with us.
In the public eye, I feel like there have been public figures who have been coming out, especially in recent times, talking about against surrogacy, against IVF. And so that was part of why I wanted to do this, is just to let people know is that this is a process that gives incredible results. And, and we're so glad that your agency was here to help us through it and to help us get this wonderful little guy, and that this is what comes out of surrogacy.
I had what's called baby bonding, which falls under a certain category of leave, and I was only able to access certain portions of it. But dealing with human resources has been very unfortunate, because I have had to speak to multiple people, and they're like, I have never dealt with anyone who's gone through surrogacy before. I'm like, you're dealing with a county of Los Angeles County has almost 10 million people in it. And you're telling me in a county of thousands and thousands of employees, you haven't dealt with anybody who's gone through this? It's doubtful. And so it's that, to me, isn't stigma so much as uneducation or lack of education. And so it's just unfortunate. And that's part of why, I did also want to do this, is helping people understand that I'm a professional like many other people. I wanted to have children as much as the next person, and we weren't able to have children the natural way, and so this is our natural way. And there is nothing wrong with it. As Elan said, this is our little guy. This is our, miracle little guy. And, we wanted to have children, so this was the way we needed to do it. And we're excited for our next journey. We're ready for a sibling for him and for our next baby. We've restarted the process. We've updated our profile, and we've recommitted to the journey. We're ready to start again. We know it's a long process, and so we have our embryos ready to go, and we're just waiting for our next perfect surrogate to find us and for us to find them.